What's up, guys? This is Brent with 247parts.com, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to clean the carburetor on your lawnmower. So let's get started. First step is going to be removing your hood. This is always just a good idea to get it out of the way so nothing is restricting you from getting to that carburetor. Next thing to do, and this is a great step to do when you're working on your engine anytime, no matter what you're doing, is we're going to reach over here and disconnect one of our spark plugs. That way this engine won't start whenever we're going to work on these different components. Next, you need to locate your carburetor. On this mower, it is right here in front, right underneath your air filter cover. But if you've never done this before and you're looking for your carburetor, one good way to help you find it is to start up here underneath the dash, where your linkages are and where your cables are for your throttle, and then just follow them down the machine, and that's going to at least lead you in the direction of where your carburetor is located. Now that we found that, we need to go ahead and start removing components so we can get that carburetor exposed to be able to take it off. So on this mower here, to start, we're going to take off our air filter cover. And on this make, the air filter actually sits right on top of the outer housing of our carburetor, so we're going to actually take this air filter off. Now that we have that off, we can also disconnect if we have a solenoid here on the bowl of your carburetor. You'll know it because you'll see it. It'll be sticking off the actual bowl here, and you'll have an electrical connection. You just need to reach over and disconnect that, and that just pulls off real easy by hand. Once that's done, we're going to have hoses and linkages that we also need to remove. So we'll start here with this hose that we see that is good and exposed, and we're just going to simply undo this clamp, scoot it back, and then we're going to pull this hose off of the carburetor housing. Next are going to be our linkages on the carburetor. Now on this one, we are going to have the two linkages here. So we have two cables going to the mower. We have a throttle and a choke. Therefore, we have two things that are being controlled by the carburetor. So we have two linkages. Now we need to take those loose. We're first going to pop off these holder clips, and then sometimes they'll pop out really easy just like that. And we're going to reach up here and pop this one loose, pull that out just like so. And then also you may have a spring attached to these, so we just need to get that up and off, set it out of the way. Once you've got everything that you can see taken off of the carburetor on the sides and all around it, now we are looking for the bolts that are holding on this housing or holding on the carburetor itself. So for instance, on this carburetor, we've got 4 bolts here, 2 that are going in, 2 that are coming out. So we're just going to start to remove those. Now I prefer to use either a ratchet or a nut driver rather than an impact on your carburetor here, because most of the time they are made of cast aluminum. So you want to be careful about the torque that you're putting on these. So I'm going to go ahead now with my 10 millimeter. These could be different sizes. A lot of times a 10 millimeter is what holds these on. So I'm going to go ahead and take that and start to remove this front housing. Once you have that loose, we can start to pull this off. This is just going to be the housing here, and sometimes you're not going to have this set up. Sometimes you'll have just the carburetor itself with a lot less bulky housing, but like I said, this has the air filter sitting on top, so we do need to give this a good cleaning, and we also need to clean our carburetor. We do have one more hose here on top that we need to take loose. This is just going to have a hose clamp here. Pull that off. Now you'll see here that our gaskets are starting to come off, and that's okay, because a good rule of thumb too is that whenever you are cleaning your carburetor, it's going to be a good idea to just go ahead and change these gaskets. And there will be some setups like we have here where right on our air intake we have the backing. This is going to be what's called an insulator, and you'll see here too that it has a gasket on it as well. You might want to go through and change these. I'm going to for this sake because I have the parts here on hand and ready. So I'm going to pop that off. Now this is a plastic piece that does have a gasket on both sides. So we're going to go ahead and change those up. And while we're right here, we're also going to make sure and get off any of this residue right here around that, just to make sure that we're staying clean there. Now to clean this off a little better, I've got my brass brush here. Anytime we're doing carburetor work and working on metal surfaces, a brass brush is a good idea. If you're working on plastic pieces, then a nylon brush or maybe just some paper towels there should work good for that. Once you're done brushing that, it is a good idea just to make sure that we don't have any of that gunk in our air intake there. Just give that a wipe. As you can see, you will have a little bit of residue inside there, so just get that out. But don't use anything that's going to leave material in that air intake when you wipe it out. Now that we've got the carburetor off, the next thing we need to do is some disassembly here. First off, we need to take the bowl off of the bottom of the carburetor, because as you can see, that bowl is holding fuel. So what we're going to do on this one is we've got 2 screws here that we just need to start taking loose, and then take this bowl off. Once you get this off, this just exposes the internal components along with your float here that is down in the bowl. So we just need to make sure that all of the fuel is out of the bowl. Next, we're going to disassemble the top plate here just to get everything open. Now that you've got everything opened up here, we can see that where we need to be cleaning at. Now we need to be careful of our gaskets that are inside here, but we need to be cleaning all the way through our openings here, through these holes, through these top holes that are going to go right down to those fuel and air inserts. We just need to make sure that we are cleaning this out very thoroughly. And what we need to be using is a carbon choke cleaner. Reason for that is because this is going to evaporate quickly and also take care of any of this debris that is in or on the carburetor. If we're doing any cleaning that's going to be done to the metal surfaces of this carburetor, make sure that we're using that brass brush. Now, a good idea would be to take this outside, spray it down really good with our carbon choke cleaner, and then come back and do the reassembly. You want to make sure that whenever you're cleaning your bowl that you're not going to damage that float that's inside. So if you have the option of taking out that pin and completely removing the bowl, that would be a good idea as well. It's very important that we're getting the ends here of our carburetor clean so that our gaskets are going to make a good seal. And then we want to go into those fuel hose connections to make sure that we're getting all the gunk out of there that could be built up. Now, on a lot of carburetors, you may have quite a bit different setup than what we have here. So you may also be looking for screws on the side of your carburetor, and those are going to have little brass pieces on the inside or metal pieces that are going to be your jets and needles, and you need to make sure and be taking those out to clean them. But you need to be careful also when you're just looking at random screws on your carburetor, because some are going to adjust your idle position. For instance, on this carburetor here, this screw just adjusts your idle position. So if your carburetor in your mower was running well, we don't want to mess with this one. As you can see, it does not go into the body of the carburetor, so we don't need to worry about it. The only other one that we have is going to be on the bowl, and this is simply just going to be your drain or your on-off valve for your carburetor. Now we can go back in and start putting everything back together like it was. Now, if you do have the chance to get a new gasket here for on top of the carburetor, go ahead and do that. If not, just make sure that everything is good and clean and get that put back into place. And on with our plate and back in with our 3 screws. Just using a screwdriver to take this apart and put it back together is going to be perfectly fine. Like I said, we don't want to go crazy and put a screw gun or a impact on these little screws and on these housings, because this is a cast aluminum and we do not want to accidentally break the housing. Now we're going back on with our bowl for this model here. We do have these 2 tubes. We need to make sure and get those lined up in the 2 holes there. And then tighten those up. Now, going back on, the first thing we're going to do is go on with our gasket, our insulator, and our outside gasket here. So those are going to go front to back, just like that, and get started on just like that. And then we'll move these back. Now we can go back on with our carburetor. Next, we need to go back on with our fuel hose here. Then we have another gasket to go on with. Now we can go back on with our air filter housing here. And we can go back in with our bottom bolts. And then on with our nuts. And then tighten everything up nice and snug. Now once that's done, we can go back in here with our tube and hose. Then we can move around here to the side, go back on with our linkages. Now we can plug back in our solenoid down here at the bottom. We can go back on with our air filter. Back on with our cover. And once you get your hood back on, make sure to fire this thing up, make sure everything sounds right and is running correctly, and then you should be good to go. So some of the reasons why we need to clean our carburetor is, for one, most of the fuels out there nowadays are going to have ethanol in them, and that will cause buildup in these carburetors. So we need to be watching that, making sure that we're getting that cleaned out. Also, there are times when just the filter does not catch every little particle, and so sometimes those will cause buildup in these carburetors. And what you'll see from those two things and from any other dirtiness that's in that carburetor is you'll start seeing sluggish performance, less power in your mower. So then that's a good indicator when you're feeling like your mower doesn't have that power to push through the grass like it once did, or it's really having a hard time running at that top speed. It could simply just be that your carburetor is dirty. I hope this video helped you out. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, we just ask that you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as that helps us out as well. And also, guys, if you feel like I left anything out or you have any other questions or comments, make sure to leave those down in the comments section below so I can be sure to get back with you. And then while you're down there, make sure to scroll up just a little bit into that description tab and check out that link to 247parts.com, where you can go to get all those parts that you saw today, including this carbon choke cleaner. You can also get any parts for your John Deere equipment, whether it be lawnmowers, gators, tractors, compact construction equipment, whatever those things are, make sure to check that out. And then also, one last thing, if you're looking for more information over just the equipment itself rather than how-tos, make sure to go check out our other channel, Western Equipment, for all that good information. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, make sure to go buy your parts right here and subscribe right here.